Hey guys, what's going on? Goofy Rexy here. Hope everybody is doing well, and forgive me for my voice. I've not been feeling well for the past couple of days here. As a matter of fact, the entire house has not been feeling that good for the past few days, which is the reason why you haven't seen any videos from me. But in today's video, feeling a little bit better, so I wanted to talk a little bit here about preparing for the event campaign. So I know a lot of players right now are preparing for the Death Scourge event, which is going to be going live later on today. But I did want to at least talk about the event campaign for Nemesis and talk about the best characters that are going to have the chosen trait that you're going to want to use for this event campaign. Now, this may be a little bit more useful and helpful probably for beginner to mid-game players here, but I still wanted to talk about it because the character options, they're okay. They're not great for players who are not endgame. So I do want to at least target it and talk a little bit about it here and give you some options that if you are sort of like at that mid-game earlier level, that I'll kind of talk about some characters that you should probably use here and build up for this event that will be helpful for other content as well in the game. We know this information that we got in the release notes that the event campaign is going to be called the Harbinger of the End. From the release notes last week here, and it mentioned that you'll need a top squad of characters with a limited time trait to attempt the heroic difficulty. Now, you're probably not going to be doing the heroic difficulty if you're end game, but definitely going to be important if you're going to be doing the hard difficulty for this, because you will need at least 3 characters that do have that. I believe, is it 3 or 5? I'm trying to remember. You at least need characters that do have that chosen trait in order to be able to do that difficulty. And we know that the characters that are the trait that is going to be used here is going to be called the chosen trait, because in the data mine, it mentions here, earn chosen orb fragments in the Harbinger of the End event campaign. Chosen orb fragments, collect chosen orb fragments in the Harbinger of the End event campaign in order to be able to earn the chosen orb. So if we filter our roster here and then take a look at the characters that have the chosen trait, we're going to go through them really quickly here and kind of talk about who are obviously the top tier options. And then we'll talk about what's probably best for like free to play or mid game earlier options as well. So obviously for me, I think if you're looking at like top tier options, the ones that are going to stand out obviously going to be Omega Red, Magneto, of course, one of the Nemesis, of course, if he's a newer character, and then of course Dark Beast as well. Now, of course, Dark Beast, Nemesis, Magneto, these characters are going to be used for your Doom raid content, your Doom raid content. So whether or not you're doing it now, you're doing Doom raids now, or you're going to be doing Doom raids in the future. If you do have, let's say, Dark Beast, because maybe you don't have Nemesis because Nemesis is brand new. Dark Beast, his event just concluded, so maybe you were able to get enough shards to be able to unlock him. Then of course I would say that investing into Dark Beast is definitely a good way to go to kind of get yourself ready for that future content, and of course Apocalypse as well, which you're going to need. So you're going to want to invest and build for that. And of course Magneto, legendary character, but at the same time a part of that Dead Sea team as well with Dark Beast here that you're going to need in order to be able to unlock Apocalypse. That's definitely going to make sense. Now, Nemesis, we're going to kind of exclude off of this list. Obviously, if you have him, it's going to be a good option here for this event campaign. Sorry, guys. But he's not, there's no free-to-play way of getting him right now. So therefore, for the sake of this list, we're going to keep him off. But if you do have him, of course, you're going to be able to use him. Omega Red, from a free-to-play perspective, we're also probably going to not talk about him as well here. Obviously, if you have Omega Red, that's great. You're going to want to use Omega Red. But this is probably going to be more of a helpful video for players who are not going to be using, who don't have Omega Red available and trying to figure out what options are there. Omega Red, though, is harder to get for beginner and mid-game players because there's a couple of different loopholes that you have to go through in order to be able to get him. So probably not the best option. So if I were looking at this from like a beginner to mid-game sort of list here, if I'm going to be doing the hard difficulty, probably not maybe the heroic difficulty. But even if you are in the mid-game point where you could do heroic difficulty, we'll talk about some of the best options that are going to be out there. So some of the ones that stand out to me are Shatterstar and then Longshot. Now, these characters are not great in MSF by any means, but they are characters that, for the investment that you do need for, let's say, the hard difficulty, which I think is probably not really that high. I think heroic is a little bit more challenging, where you probably need like G14, G15 characters. For the hard difficulty for Shatterstar and Longshot, I think that you're going to be able to use these characters efficiently enough to be able to get through it. They're a very good tandem. They work very well together. If you put them also with other characters that do crit, then that's also going to enhance their abilities as well and what they're going to be able to do. You can also still use these characters to be able to unlock Adam Warlock. Now, granted, Adam Warlock and the Infinity Watch team are not necessarily like top tier meta, but they are still a useful team for like things like Cosmic Crucible. Some of the characters like Gamora, Nebula, Phyla-Vela, I think are good early free-to-play options as well. So I do think Shatterstar and Longshot, from a free-to-play perspective, are some good options, other options that you can use. We've already talked about Magneto already. Magneto you can get fairly early on. So if you are new to Marvel Strike Force here, there is a web page called MSF.gg. On MSF.gg, if you click on this game tab here and go over to legendary events, you can then scroll down to a character like Magneto, and then you can see the eligible characters that you need in order to be able to unlock him. You can click on this as well, and it'll give you some more information in regards to the event. If you want to get a 5-star Magneto, what you need to do in order to be able to get a 5-star Magneto, and the recommended level and gear tier levels that you need in order to be able to unlock that character as well. So yeah, I think Magneto is definitely a good option for things that we've already talked about, the Dead Sea team and needing them for Apocalypse, but also being able to use them for the Mutant Doom raids later on. That's going to be very important. So therefore, I think Magneto comes in as an option here as well. And if you have the Raider ISO on him, he does have this big AoE attack that cannot, that if it does crit, number one, it's going to land blinds, but also if it does crit, it will work to speed up Longshot, and Shatterstar as well can be really helpful in those nodes. But then apart from that, right, like the free-to-play options, they kind of get a little slim. Now there's Sabretooth, who I think is an easy enough character in order to be able to get. He does also have the Brotherhood tag, so there is synergy that he will have, although he's not used on that team a lot anymore. There is synergy that he does have with Magneto, who also does have the Brotherhood tag as well. So there is some solid usage there that you can get from him. I'm just dropping things all over the place. There's some solid usage that you can get from Magneto and Sabretooth using Longshot and then Shatterstar together. I think that would actually not be a pretty good enough team to kind of get you going. I think what you may lack a little bit here is some protection and maybe just having somebody else that can take on some hits, which I'll be honest with you, with this list, there's not really a lot of good protectors that will kind of help you to kind of stave off hits. So like Juggernaut, I wouldn't invest, like Juggernaut's a protector, but I wouldn't necessarily invest into Juggernaut because Juggernaut's not really used for any meaningful content later on down the line. At least Sabretooth, if you do build him, you can use him to unlock Magneto if you don't have him already. You can use him on the Weapon X team, right? There's areas in the game where you can actually use him for future content, although the Weapon X team is kind of it's very still strong in war, but outside of that, a lot of people are just using Omega Red and other characters in order to be able to utilize Omega Red at in other game modes. So forgive me, guys. So what I would say is Sabretooth is a nice little other free-to-play option that you can use here. Now, this one is gonna sound a little out of world for maybe you guys, but I think Kingpin is not a terrible, like as a fifth character with Magneto, Sabretooth, Shatterstar, Longshot. I think Kingpin is actually not a terrible character to use, right? There's a lot of now I haven't invested into Kingpin as of yet. Only thing I did was that if you guys knew where I was at for fragments on him, I finally brought him up to 7 stars. But I still haven't had the opportunity to invest into him yet because there's just so many things to invest into in Marvel Strike Force right now that there's just no realistic opportunity available for a brother to be able to invest into Kingpin at the moment. But definitely a character I want to, but I do think that from a early or mid-game perspective, that there's definitely some value that you can get from a character like Kingpin. Number one, with his rework, on spawn, you're going to get these bodyguards that gain taunt and then 2 death proof. So those bodyguards are going to take on a little bit of damage, getting some of that damage away from Longshot, Shatterstar, Magneto, Sabretooth, who kind of are squishy characters a little bit. Like they kind of they don't do very well when they continue to get repeated hits. So if you're looking for a little bit of protection here, then Kingpin can provide that with his bodyguards. Kingpin also can assist, or can apply at least assist now as well to some random characters, a 50% chance to do so. So for instance, like Magneto and Sabretooth are both villain characters. Whenever Kingpin takes a turn, or whenever any of those villain characters take a turn, there's a 50% chance that you gain an additional attack from the assist. There's also some utility that he can bring too. So he can apply defense up for 2 turns to self and all allies. He can also apply offense up for 2 turns to 5 random allies. If you T4, it's all allies, but 5 random allies should be enough. And then there's a couple other things. You can summon some more bodyguards here. They apply taunt, that get death proof, so it'll be hard to kind of mow through them as well. And I think you can also get an assist on this basic ability. 50% chance to get an assist from a random ally whenever he does his basic as well. So I think Kingpin will provide some solid value for you, being that he did get a rework. He's a part of this Underworld team now. I think that Kingpin would be a nice little character that you can use, and I have Anomaly Detected here, that you can slot in to your 5-person team that we're talking about. So Magneto, Sabretooth, Shatterstar, Longshot, and I think Kingpin is probably going to be your best bet to go with if you are a beginner or are a free-to-play player. If you are a beginner to mid-game, like in that range, in that area, you don't have access to maybe Dark Beast yet, or you weren't able to build them up as of yet, but maybe you have some of these other characters that you already have some minor investment into, and those are probably going to be the best options that you can use there to be able to do this content. So while this loads, we're going to kind of end it here. Of course, Anomaly Detect can hit us again, but want to know what your guys' thoughts are. What are you thinking about using gear? Now, for me, obviously, I'm more end game, so I have a decent repertoire of characters to be able to use here. But like I said, I really wanted to make this video to be able to help out beginner and mid-game players, because I think this is going to be a little bit more challenging for you guys. So I'm hoping that this was helpful information that you can utilize here to kind of plan out what it is that you are currently doing. So listen, leave in the comments if you have any sort of specific questions for me here. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the notification bell so that you know when the videos do go live. And until next time, guys, y'all be blessed. Y'all be safe. Bye. Oh, man. They gave me some tea with some honey.